On July 20th, 1969, a crew of 3, consisting of Commander Neil Armstrong, Lunar Module pilot Edwin Buzz Aldrin, and Command Module pilot Michael Collins. There was a third guy? Anyway, on July 20th, 1969, all 3 of those men landed on the moon and colonized it, I think. The trip took 8 days in total and was the first time humans set foot on the moon, serving as a long-anticipated milestone of science and exploration and American nationalism. And then 56 years later, this happened.
1, 2, 3, take a space! Woo!
Those are like the guide parachutes. There go the drogue parachutes.
Just free-falling right there until those drogues came out.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where I cover nostalgic, obscure, or otherwise strange content, and lately I've been tying it back to current events because I'm disappointed in humanity. A few days ago, as of me recording this video, Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company that builds very phallic rockets by using the money he hoards through paying his workers slave wages and other morally dubious business practices, launched what they're billing as the world's first all-female space crew. If you haven't been on the internet all week, first of all, I'm sorry to see you breaking your streak here, now, but secondly, you may be thinking, that's cool. That can't possibly be a massive display of late-stage capitalism and frivolity parading around in a progress-shaped mask, right guys? Guys? Yeah, so this mission lasted less than 11 minutes, barely leaving Earth, and not only did none of the passengers really crew much, save for a couple of experiments hastily done in the 4 minutes they were afforded in space, but it's rumored that the elite women on board paid their way in, with the cost of their ticket being estimated as anywhere between $100,000 and $1 million. We don't have any official reports on how much money the whole thing actually cost that I could find, and some or all of them may have just been invited guests of Jeff Bezos and his fiancée. But this 11-minute trip likely had a $1 billion price tag. Yikes. Now some people are just here for the cringe, the memes. This was one giant leap for meme kind. But others are genuinely concerned about the state of our culture, that they thought this was a good idea, and they're mad that the media is referring to these women as astronauts when that feels disrespectful to the 104 real female astronauts who risked, and in some cases lost, their lives to further scientific research and better our world. This whole situation has led me down a rabbit hole about space and the women who have been exploring it since 1963, when Valentina Tereshkova, who was the first female astronaut in space, went up there. In 1963, okay, did you know that to this day, she is still the only woman to do a solo space flight?
The first woman flies in space, cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova. In her 48 orbits around the Earth, Tereshkova tallies more flight time in space than all the Mercury astronauts combined.
She also apparently was picked for an all-female space training program, in part because of her skydiving skills, which she had to use when her ship crashed and she had to bail over Kazakhstan, where apparently a bunch of nice locals invited her in for dinner. I love that story. Isn't it whimsical? I have to share all of this hyperfixation info with someone, and also I found some really interesting archival footage that I've never seen before, so I'm gonna take you through this whole Blue Origin mess, and we're gonna talk about how goofy it is, but at every step of the way, I'm gonna tell you a story of a female astronaut that did cool space shit. This will by no means be an exhaustive list, but I hope we can all learn together and unpack our feelings in a way that doesn't just put down all women. Let's go back and start at the beginning. There was a lot of fanfare surrounding this flight, with the 6 women who would board the craft doing a bunch of press. Just to give you a rundown of who these ladies are if you don't know, we have Lauren Sanchez, a pilot and journalist who is sadly most famous for being engaged to comic book villain Jeff Bezos. Amanda Wynn, a bioastronautics researcher and civil rights activist. Gayle King, famous journalist and best friend of Oprah Winfrey. Aisha Bowie, an entrepreneur and former NASA scientist. Carrie Ann Flynn, a wealthy socialite and film producer. And of course, Katy Perry.
Sometimes I like to pretend I'm an astronaut.
Wee, 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 wee.
A former pop star and current meme. They did a whole media tour like they were being forced at gunpoint to promote a Marvel movie. Let's look at this CBS Morning interview. I find myself using CBS Morning, of all things, as a resource as I make these long-form videos. And I don't know what that says about me or the state of the world, but shout out to them anyway. They were kind of a big propaganda arm for this whole thing because Gayle King reports on their show. Like, she's an anchor on CBS Morning. You get it.
I was lucky enough, Nate, to sit down with all 6 crew members after they finished training yesterday.
This reporter on the left is already over this story. Gayle King looks like she's terrified.
Less than 24 hours to go until you all blast off into space.
This is the look of someone who's been talked into a scary roller coaster ride and can't back out now because the safety bar is already locked in. And to be fair, this is a very scary thing. Few things scare me more than the thought of going into space. It's been a fact about me ever since I saw Treasure Planet and that one character gets his like tether thing cut and then he floated off into space and died screaming. I had nightmares for weeks. So I don't mock the fear, but it gives the impression that someone had to talk her into this. Did Gayle even want to do this? Gayle, did Oprah make you do this? Blink twice if you're okay, Gayle. They all get asked to describe how they feel before the launch in one word.
One word?
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Gratitude is Lauren's answer. I think that's a pretty politically correct answer. She kind of seems to know that this is going to be viewed as a rich person privilege more than the rest of them.
Justice.
Justice.
Justice I found so genuinely interesting because it's so specific and also opposite of any other answer I've seen about this whole thing online. And I didn't know anything about Amanda Wynn before researching this topic, so I was genuinely curious to hear her elaborate, and she did.
Justice takes different forms. You know, when Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, bombs rained down on Vietnam. When my family looked at the sky, they saw death. But tomorrow, when they look at the sky, they'll see the first Vietnamese woman in space.
And I'm gonna be honest, at least her trip had a purpose. Don't get me wrong, I hate space tourism. I wish it was not a thing, but from what I've seen, apparently she does have training to be an astronaut and had to put her ambitions aside due to surviving SA and fighting for justice, which is terrible and nobody should go through that. So I have nothing snarky to say about her or her situation. I don't like that this happened, but I'm not gonna punch down at her or Aisha because they are the two that are actually qualified to be here. Like I said, Aisha is also a NASA scientist. I think I'm able to hold 2 opinions at once. You guys know I'm always advocating for and trying to be better at nuance in my own life, and I think we can all sit with both the massive wealth disparity and negative impacts this kind of thing represents and has on the earth, and clown on these famous people for doing what seems like a PR stunt, question the validity of the title of astronaut that they're being given, but also, on the other hand, at the same time, we can understand that for 2 women on board, this is something they've put work in for, and it holds real meaning for them, and it's the culmination of their career and their work. So these 2 are not really who I'm talking about when I'm being snarky. Just putting that out there, Aisha and Amanda, not who I'm talking about.
At peace.
At peace.
Okay, I don't mean to be a bitch. This woman is an accomplished NASA scientist. She's very intelligent. I'm sure she's nervous. This is the only bad thing you're gonna hear me say about her. At peace is 2 words, and I thought about that all morning. But again, she and Amanda, real scientists, and don't have any beef with them. Really saving my graceful side eye for the famous women.
Worthiness.
Worthiness.
Oh, Katie. Worthiness is such an out-of-touch answer since we're talking about this immense privilege. It feels like when someone says a billionaire deserves to have $1 billion because of all the hard work they've done, you know? Gayle mentions how they only had a couple days of training, which I think gets to the core of why people don't like them calling themselves astronauts. To be fair, mostly the fanfare surrounding them and all the reporters are calling them astronauts, but still, same thing. And Lauren Sanchez, who again, Jeff Bezos' fiance, is asked about how this happened because I guess this was all her idea.
When Jeff went up and he came back down and I was so excited for him. Within 24 hours, he's like, would you ever go up? I was like, oh, what? I was like, yes, I would go up. And in that exact moment, I said, could I take all women up? And he goes, that's a great idea.
And if that isn't performative activism at its highest production value, I don't know what is. There are so many issues facing women right now in society. Denial of healthcare, with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, our right to leave our own marriages being questioned with political opposition to no-fault divorces cropping up because Republican men can't handle being dumped. Hell, there are countless migrant women and single mothers just trying to make ends meet. Did it ever occur to you, Lauren Sanchez, that you could have used the insane amount of money it took to send this weirdly shaped rocket into space to actually help real women, other than entertaining us, because again, the memes are very funny. And that's the thing. We as a social media driven society amplify performative activism a lot. Sometimes I don't even know that we know we're doing it anymore. When I talk about politics and human rights, I try my best to convey how I feel honestly, because I don't want and would hate for anyone to believe that I'm not speaking out of genuine interest and concern. But I'm sometimes resentful that there are so many people that like to appear socially aware, but really they just want the clout. Because being reactive and performative for views just makes having these nuanced conversations that much harder, and in the age of the internet, performative activism has become a very marketable way to advertise. I mean, I'm talking about all these ladies now, and before I didn't even know what Lauren Sanchez's voice sounded like, so unfortunately this campaign worked. And there are lots of other celebrities trying their best to use their platform for good, meanwhile, and divert attention back to the causes that mean the most to them through their work and art, and they get unfairly accused of not caring. So I'm honestly glad that we're all on the same page on this one and finally giving this type of activist its moment of clowning, you know?
I also think it sends a strong message to young boys about what women and what girls can do.
Gail says she wants to show young boys what girls can do, so now I'd like to pivot away from this. We'll put a pin in this interview for a second and come back to it, because right now I want to talk about the first American woman in space, Sally Ride.
But as the Challenger climbed today, it carried an American woman astronaut, Sally Ride, into space and into history.
Sally joined NASA in 1978 when she was picked to join the space program along with 5 other women, meaning we didn't need Lauren Sanchez to find 6 women to become astronauts. She was recruited after she answered an ad in her college paper as she was getting ready to graduate with her PhD in astrophysics. And in 1983, Sally became the first US-born woman in space when she traveled on the Challenger along with 4 male crew members for the STS-7 mission. I found this old ABC News piece about the flight.
And liftoff of STS-7 and America's first woman astronaut. And the shuttle has cleared the tower.
It was a perfect launch into the history books, as Challenger once again charged into the sky and gently rolled over, carrying not only Sally Ride, but 4 other male astronauts towards orbit. The trip to space was so exhilarating, Dr. Ride offered this comparison in her first words from Challenger.
You ever been to Disneyland? Affirmative. That was definitely an e-ticket.
That's adorable. What an old Disney reference that was. But I know all the Disney nerds like me got it.
Over at the VIP site, her family dealt with the sort of attention Dr. Ride had left behind. And after watching her daughter light off atop 2 rockets, Joyce Ride had this word of advice for would-be space travelers.
Think about your mother.
She looks just like her mom. It's so sweet to see the families of these big historical figures that we look up to and remember that they're really just normal people. They're just like me, for real.
Later, the astronauts beamed down their first TV pictures of the payload bay and pointed out the cloud cover over Florida. Then this afternoon, with John Fabian at the controls and Sally Ride still grinning as she worked and played with the camera, they completed their first task, deployment of the Canadian communication satellite.
I think part of this whole thing is that it's easy to forget for us who haven't been to space how much work astronauts do up there. They risk their lives to provide vital services to the world, and in turn, we give them a title that very few have. In this old PBS interview, Sally talks about her work as a scientific researcher and then elaborates on the training process of an astronaut at NASA.
Okay, the first year of our basic training was a lot different than most people imagine. The press only filmed the aspects of the training that looked exciting when we were doing water survival or parachute training, that kind of thing. But really, that only took up maybe 4 or 5 days of that year. Most of the year was spent in the classroom learning about the space shuttle systems, the space shuttle experiments, a little bit of background on the shuttle.
The first year. This is why when Gail King says they spent 2 days going, seatbelts are hard, you guys, people get really annoyed that they then are calling them astronauts.
What surprised you about training?
Yes.
So many seatbelts.
So many clicks.
When asked about women in space, Sally stresses here, as she did throughout her life and career, that she wanted the takeaway to be that gender had no bearing that she could see on the work. She just wanted to be known as an astronaut, not as a woman astronaut.
I know you've had a lot of questions about being the first woman and a lot of dumb questions in press conferences. I've heard them all. I can't imagine how you survive them. But is there any way that being a woman and an astronaut has made any difference, either positively or negatively or in any kind of funny ways, that you're willing to talk about?
I really don't think that there is any aspect of the training or of the flight where it's made any difference that there have been women astronauts on the crew or not.
She must have gotten asked so many stupid questions in her life.
You know, the women and the men go through exactly the same training. The women and the men do exactly the same jobs on orbit, and weightlessness is a great equalizer. You don't need to be strong to do things up there, and there is really no difference.
Speaking for myself, I keep getting told by news outlets that I'm supposed to feel empowered by the Blue Origin flight, but honestly, this is what makes me feel strong and encouraged. Sally Ride saying, I did the same work my male peers did, I did it well, we are equals. I'm a filmmaker, definitely not as hard as being an astronaut, but film also tends to be a male-dominated space. And being able to work amongst men and know that my work speaks for itself is what I hope for and strive for and work for constantly. So, yeah, it's like, just call me a filmmaker. I'm sure she felt the same way, just call me an astronaut.
You know, it's spectacular to fly over the Himalayas in the moonlight and have them look like they're just reaching up to touch you.
Sally had this way of talking about space with such a childlike wonder. Like, she talks about eating breakfast on the ceiling of the spaceship, and the way she describes looking down on the Earth, it feels like a children's bedtime story, and I love it.
Weightlessness is fun. That's probably the best way to describe it.
When asked about the pressure she was under, she points pretty exclusively to the media trying to make a big deal out of her gender, which I think speaks for itself.
Well, there was obviously a lot of pressure on me when I was selected to be the first woman. I think that most of it was generated by the press. There were a lot of requests for interviews. Everyone wanted to talk to me, and basically I was trying to train and NASA was trying to get me trained.
She talks about the robotic arm she operated in space.
There's a lot involved in the training to operate the arm. I started working with it right after I came to NASA, the first year that I was here, and worked a lot with the engineers up in Toronto, where the arm is made, in the engineering development. Spent a lot of time in their simulators. Once I got assigned to a flight, that's when I really started spending the time at mock-ups like this, where we've got a real live arm. You know, it's a piece of machinery that you can move around and fly around, and you know, you can bump it into things, you can break things with it, and this is the only simulator that you can do that. The arm itself is not strong enough to support itself under gravity, so you can't use the real arm on the ground. You can only use it in orbit. All the other simulators that we've got are computer-generated simulations. So you're looking at a computer drawing, and it's almost like a video game. You're playing a video game.
The smile when she's talking about video games gives me this impression that she was a gamer. That's complete speculation on my part. I found no evidence in my research to back that up, but I feel it in my bones. She apparently insisted that the name tag on her spacesuit just simply say Sally, because she wanted to be seen as just another person showing up to work and didn't like having her whole rank and title up there, because I guess she saw it as kind of pretentious. She was very famous in the 80s and appeared so many times on TV.
Astronaut.
Here's an old clip of her on Sesame Street teaching kids about what she does, and it's amazing.
We ran a lot of experiments. We had one experiment to make medicines that you can't make down here on Earth.
You know, that's really going way, 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 way up in the sky. You know how high that is going up there? Yeah. How high do you think it is?
How high do you think it is?
Is a building? Higher than
100 feet? Higher than
100 feet? No.
I mean, yeah, when Jeff Bezos does it, it's about that high. It's kind of kiss the Carmen line.
It's fun moving around and pushing off the walls and eating lunch on the ceiling. It doesn't feel like anything that you can experience here on Earth.
How did you exercise if you didn't weigh anything?
Well,
how could you tell if you were doing
That's a good question.
I am 28 years old, and I'm sitting here watching Sesame Street going, yeah, Sally, how do you do that?
You really don't use your muscles at all up there. It's so easy to move around. You can just push off a wall and you float across the room. So you don't use your muscles much. We had a treadmill that we carried that we had to strap ourselves down to, so we were being pulled down onto the treadmill. And then we could run on it and exercise our legs that way.
She seems so happy to teach about what she does. I love when people love what they do. Ugh, it's just the cutest thing in the world.
How many here would like to go up in space with Sally on the next ride?
That kid right there, Katy Perry. Sally sadly passed away in 2012 from pancreatic cancer at just 61 years old, but her legacy lives on. Valerie Neal, curator at the Smithsonian, said of Sally, "Sally Ride has become a symbol of equality. She did the same job that male astronauts had done and did the job excellently. She had broken a very high glass ceiling, the ceiling into spaceflight, and that's how we will remember her." People also forget, because it wasn't really made public until after her passing, that she was the first known queer astronaut as well as being the first female astronaut.
Hi, I'm Tam O'Shaughnessy. I met Sally Ride and became her friend when we were girls playing competitive tennis in Southern California. Later, we were partners for 27 years until her death in 2012.
And I don't know, I just feel like Sally broke a lot of barriers, and I think she was really, really cool. Okay, back to the sideshow.
So many seatbelts.
You have to put it in a certain way at a certain time. The way you put your feet in the straps when you're going into zero gravity, how you get in and out of the chair, in and out of the seat, all of those things.
It's all a bit of a dance.
I haven't been through any kind of space training, but the way they talk about it, I don't know that they have either. I'm assuming there's more to it, but they aren't doing us ladies any favors by going on these tangents about how capable they are as women, and then being like, you guys, seatbelts are confusing.
You would think it would be me as a pilot, but I was the first one to have to go, and I had to do it like 6 times.
Why don't you just make women can't drive jokes while you're at it? I mean, I can't drive, but that's not because I'm a woman, because I'm mentally ill and I get left and right mixed up. That's beside the point. Amanda walks us through what kind of scientific experiment she'll be running on the trip.
In the beginning of NASA, women were actually barred from becoming NASA astronauts, and one of the reasons cited was menstruation, but they didn't have the data to back that up. And so on this flight, I am examining different wound dressing mediums and how they interact with fluid dynamics to the viscosity of menstruation blood, and getting the data to back that up.
And I will, again, I've said this before, I do think it's cool that there were 2 scientists that got to go up there and prioritize, like, hey, what kind of experiments can we do? I just feel like if we were really doing this for the betterment of humanity, we could have had, you know, all 6 women be astronauts doing it, or at least all women being qualified scientists. We're living in a time where women who have trained for years to go to space at NASA currently are being laid off in massive numbers. If this wasn't a stunt, why not send those women up, have them do the research, and then let them talk about how important their work is and call out the current administration for not valuing scientific pursuits? I'm glad at least some of the women on board cared about taking the opportunity to conduct experiments, though. And I mean no disrespect to their work. It just kind of feels like Lauren Sanchez wanted to do a thing and then hastily tried to do something that felt like tangible service to humanity to try to get ahead of the criticism. Because at the end of the day, this was a pretty big waste of resources.
There's always positive and negative, always. And, you know, Blue Origin's mission is for the benefit of Earth.
Do you guys remember the episode of The Fresh Prince? I think it was actually the pilot episode where Hillary says she's being an activist by riding around in a huge bus with a bunch of famous people and having a giant bonfire. Lauren Sanchez is giving that energy.
We're gonna take the bus all over town to protest air pollution, and then we're gonna motor to the beach and have a big bonfire.
I'm not an expert or anything, but don't you think driving a big old bus around town and then having a bonfire sort of adding to the problem of pollution?
The interviewer then asks about the backlash they were already getting at this point, even though they haven't gone up yet. And Lauren gives us a response full of so much propaganda. I would have expected it from the Soviet head of state.
And you should go walk around and ask anyone who works here how they feel about this mission. And I think you'll get choked up. Yes. And so to me, I just think it's a little misunderstood, especially for all the people that give everything to make this flight possible.
This got me thinking because in all of this coverage, I've seen practically nothing about the actual scientists and engineers who made this launch physically happen. The person on comms with them when they fly is a woman named Laura Stiles, and I don't think most people who have followed this whole event even know what her name is because it was barely reported on, making this whole argument that criticizing this trip is invalidating to women feel even less believable when you don't want to talk about the women actually doing the legwork to get the damn penis rocket off the ground. I had to root around to find names here and there about a person who might be holding one job or another, but I could not find all of them, even on Blue Origin's website. Someone inform me if you find more information that I don't have, but I would not be surprised to learn that Jeff Bezos can't be bothered to credit his engineers.
Many people think that if you're devoting resources to space, you're taking things away from Earth. It isn't an either or, it's a both and.
Gail, what? Okay, first of all, sure, we need to fund space exploration and solve hunger, and we can do both. But the problem is, Jeff seems to be doing a lot of one and none of the other.
Listen, this wasn't my dream growing up, but if it was my dream, I wouldn't have been able to see anybody that looked like me.
And yes, diversity matters, but again, why did it have to be you specifically? Why couldn't we have sent a diverse group of trained female astronauts? All astronauts. I like the diversity, I just don't think acting like this is the best we can do is sending the message you think it does.
So now that we are the first female crew, I know we're not going to be the last.
That stressed me out. Let me recenter by watching this old piece from the late 1970s about Catherine D. Sullivan, the first American woman to spacewalk.
She's one of 35 astronaut candidates in training to become a mission specialist on the space shuttle. As such, Kathy would be responsible for the experiments carried into orbit. Does she see an expanding role for women in space?
I think so. My view of the space program's point right now is moving from a really test flight stage to general applications, a stage that will involve really all of mankind.
I love how old school this video is, and also, why is it accidental ASMR? It's too late at night for this.
Kathy's specialty is earth sciences, with marine geology and geophysics the subject of her doctoral research.
Looked into the duties and the qualifications for a mission specialist and found that the job really seemed perfect for me. It involved the right mix of science and engineering, of doing and researching.
Catherine is also a PhD and has worked in geology and oceanic research in addition to being an astronaut, so she knows about outer space and deep sea travel, two things that terrify me and also two things that rich people are weirdly obsessed with.
I think it's important for man to have frontiers and to be exploring and challenging himself to break out of former limitations and find new ways of doing things, new things to do.
Also, menstruation plays a part in the history of barring women from space travel, and here's Catherine talking about that and living through it.
NASA, when we all joined the astronaut corps in 1978, the notion that women might actually menstruate in orbit just drove the whole place up the wall. There was a big debate about what's the dress code for women astronauts, and there was a senior engineering official on staff who said, well, what's the dress code for the men? I said, oh, we'd never have a dress code for the men astronauts. Well, I think you have your answer.
Absolute badass. Okay, now everyone breathe. We're gonna get into the actual live stream that Blue Origin broadcast before, during, and after the launch. It's very dystopian. It's all fluff for the project. We're emulating the aesthetic of legitimate news on behalf of a corporation. Honestly, it feels like all the reporters are being held at gunpoint. I'm surprised they haven't taken this thing down yet.
Now is the time.
New Shepard has cleared the tower.
Guts to open the promise of space to all.
Yes, guys, we're doing it!
And lay the way for generations to come.
Oh, WALL-E was a documentary.
When our descendants look to the stars, they'll remember this time. When they reflect on where it started, they'll remember this place. And when they honor those first explorers who said, let's go, they'll remember these bold steps. We are of Blue Origin. And this,
let's do this, new Glenn,
is just the beginning.
Tell me this this isn't the most by and large core thing you've ever seen.
This is a really big deal because this type of space flight is what's making space accessible to everyone, and it really fits the pattern of human exploration from the very beginning.
Girl, I know you did not just say that the rich person flight is making space accessible for everyone.
First, you send the professional explorers, the military test pilots, then the civilians, the scientists, the engineers, kind of the experts, and then you send everybody else, the singers, the journalists, and the activists.
Ah, yes. Every woman, Katy Perry, is breaking ground for those of us normal, everyday humans in her flying space tourist trap for the ultra elite. She's just like me for real, girls.
So why don't we learn a little bit more about the stars of the show today?
I don't think I can put into words how telling the use of the term stars of the show is in this context. Okay, the passenger profiles, some of them, like Amanda, have really honestly moving goals given her backstory. Some of them are super vapid, and then Katy is the only one that doesn't have a goal at all. Hers just says that she's bringing a bunch of bracelets up so she can give them out to kids. I guess through her nonprofit, the Firework Foundation. I suppose the idea is, hey kids, this bracelet was in space for a second, see what you can achieve? Maybe? I guess that's sweet, but if I was a kid, I don't know that I would care that much, or even really understand that concept, but maybe that's just me. I did look into the Firework Foundation just out of curiosity because I never heard of it before, and it seems to be a 501c3, or a nonprofit, that encourages children in the arts, which is good, right? That's a good thing. Their website didn't really clearly explain what they actually did tangibly, other than donating to a bunch of other charities and running a sleepaway arts camp for middle schoolers, which is cool and kind of feels like real life Camp Rock, but I wonder if they actually provide that resource to parents at a low or no cost. I just couldn't find a straight answer. Some of you may know that I used to work in nonprofit, and so I know a bit about what to look for when vetting a charity. And I saw that Charity Navigator, that's like a Michelin star reviewer type thing for nonprofits, gave the Firework Foundation an 83% score. Not terrible, but definitely could be improved upon. It didn't seem like they had found anything bad necessarily, but they reported that they had no information on the community impact, so they felt like they couldn't speak to whether or not the group actually did stuff that helped people tangibly. And also, more concerning to me personally is that the Firework Foundation hasn't disclosed any of their financial documents, which is a big no-no for nonprofits, if you don't know. So to be clear, I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't support that foundation. I'm just stating the info that I found, so do with that as you will. Lauren says, while flying a helicopter, that this trip is going to touch lives and inspire, and then also admits that it's just for funsies.
It's really not about going to space. I think it's about what all of these women are going to bring back. The stories that they're going to be able to tell, the lives that they're going to be able to touch. And also, it's just fun. Yeah. Like, we get to do something that's fun.
Which, like, okay, this is a very expensive, fun thing to do. Most people play video games, but okay, you're rich and you want to do a rich person thing. Just say that. Don't try to guilt me into liking you by pretending to be advocating for women everywhere. Ooh, I just saw an aura come on, so I know I'm getting a migraine, but I'm gonna power through the rest of this and take some ibuprofen off screen.
Why is now the time to do this, Lauren? Why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's just really bad for the environment, a complete waste of time, money, and energy, and no one respects any of you now. But yeah, why not? Go for it. They also have a Sally Ride quote about space being fun that feels disrespectful to the immense amount of hard work she did in her life.
Now, I had the immense pleasure, by the way, of getting to talk to these astronauts this past weekend when they were in all of the fields.
Okay. Once and for all, I hate that we're calling them astronauts. They are all accomplished women in their respective fields. And again, the two that are scientists are qualified as far as I can tell. But to get pedantic, the Cambridge definition of astronauts is a person who has been trained in traveling in space, and Merriam-Webster describes astronaut specifically as a person whose profession is to travel beyond the Earth's atmosphere. But more broadly, any person who travels beyond the Earth's atmosphere. Ashbury Park Press remarked about Katy Perry specifically because, again, not talking about the scientists, quote, While the pop star has a deep interest in space topics, Katy Perry does not possess any academic or professional training as a space worker. She can confidently say that she was a space tourist and the first pop singer to sing from space, because yes, she did that. There's also international debate about where space even starts. So technically, I have no straight answer for you here, but emotionally, I have to say that calling passengers on a brief flight barely off the Earth when they've done no further extensive training astronauts feels like it cheapens the word for real trained people who didn't just go up for funsies. And I think words should mean something, you know? So let's call them something else. Because yes, I know it was very big and scary what they did, but calling them astronauts is just kind of doing the most, you know? Does that make sense? The next astronaut that I want to talk about is Dr. Mae Jemison, who was the first black woman in space. She grew up in the late 50s and 60s, loving science and also the arts. She became a professionally trained dancer. She got accepted into Stanford University at 16 years old, became fluent in 4 languages, graduated with a doctorate in medicine from Cornell University, was a medical officer in the Peace Corps, interned at the Los Angeles County Medical Center before practicing general medicine. Oh yeah, and she went to space in 1992 to perform life-saving experiments in medical research. What an absolute queen, man. I'm exhausted just reading that list of accomplishments. She also was a huge fan of Star Trek. I love that. And she says that she was so inspired by Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura on the show, that she began every shift on her 1992 shuttle mission by radioing "Hailing frequencies open" as a tribute to her character. And then she got to be on an episode of Star Trek Next Gen, making her the first real-life astronaut to be on the show. Isn't that cool?
Phase distortion is dropping. The next transport window opens in 42 seconds.
How long will we have, Lieutenant?
36 minutes, sir.
We're losing time.
They also roped this woman into doing an interview with Gail where they're like, "Do you have any words of wisdom for this future astronaut, Gail King?"
What is your advice to Gail? We've been collecting advice. We had William Shatner on yesterday, but what's your advice to her going up?
First of all, understand that you've never had so many talented people looking after you in your life. The other is that you going up, you're bringing your own perspective, whatever that is, live in that moment, and then bring down and share it. And your training is going to be important because that's going to help you to understand what happens in the scale of space exploration and why it's so different from other things we do.
I'm going to talk about Gail King a lot today.
Who has admittedly said she's very nervous.
She's nervous about it, which I find so refreshing. You know, you don't always hear that from the professional astronauts about to go to space. She's admitted that she's nervous.
This is such a weird take to me because, one, I found tons of footage of astronauts talking about nerves. It's just that real astronauts have a well-earned confidence in themselves because that's what it takes to go to space and work up there. And we need to normalize acknowledging our strengths and accomplishments. But it's also so weird to imply that Gail King is some kind of homegrown alternative to the establishment astronauts.
I work with a guy named Michael Strahan. You might know who he is. Well, guess what? He became an astronaut when he flew up to space on New Shepard 19.
Oh, it is raining so hard. I've heard the assertion that we're only being critical because sexism, so let's go on record and say that Michael Strahan isn't an astronaut either. Also, remember when William Shatner went up and everyone kind of memed him about it? He wasn't even trying to make a statement by going up. It's not like he got back and was like, "I did this for the boys." And I understand that the kind of anger wasn't quite as bad, but like, in his case, he had this existential crisis about what he saw, and he was so human about it. And he's in his 90s, and he's famous for pretending to be in space all the time, so he tried to be polite about it, but he's not an astronaut either, in my opinion.
That's death up there and life down here, and between the two, ruining this planet as we are, we're on the verge to bring you the good news that we're at the tipping point. We haven't got time to wait 30 years and argue about a few $1 billion, which we should, how much should we invest in global warming? We're there.
Like, regardless of gender, stop going on Jeff's dick ride in space, Please, people, please stop doing it. It's so cringe.
Guess what? It is as easy, I can't believe I'm about to say this, as scanning a QR code. If you want to go to space, scan that QR code right there on your screen. This is, I mean, my goodness.
It's like going to a restaurant.
I scanned the code and found that Blue Origin requires a $150,000 deposit just to start the process of booking your seat. And there's no indication of how much more you'll be charged after that. Them trying to position this as something everyone has access to is insane.
Do you have a message for your family in this moment? It's okay. Yeah.
Katy, you're not going to the space station for a year, hun. You're gonna be up there for like 2 seconds. Katy.
I'm gonna be bringing a daisy, a real life daisy from the Earth.
As opposed to space daisies that make us treat the Earth like shit.
You know, my mom was a member of NASA's original 6, NASA's first class of women astronauts. Dr. Annalee Fisher there, and that's my dad, Dr. Bill Fisher.
I didn't realize this at first, but this reporter's mother is Anna Fisher, who was the first mother in space. And she's also awesome, so here's an old piece about her career in her own words.
I was just told to get in a suit and start working in the tank with my colleagues, and we did a lot of the development runs for the mini workstation that we still fly today. I was assigned to my flight 2 weeks before I delivered my daughter, my oldest daughter. I remember I delivered Kristen on a Friday, and I was at the Monday morning 8 o'clock meeting the following Monday.
This woman gave birth and then went directly to space. Could not be me. Also, I found this film from 1981 that has some really cool interviews from Anna as well as other female astronauts, and the title is Space for Women, which makes me laugh.
For an awful long time, 2,000 years, people assumed that there was a schism between the mind and the body. There was the intellect and there was emotion. But only until recently we realized just how much of the time we actually influence the ongoing physiological activity in our own bodies by what we think about.
Watching archival footage of these women underwater in spacesuits training for the weightlessness of anti-gravity is so fascinating, isn't it? It's also interesting because this film was made before Sally Ride went into space, so they mainly focus on female scientists who keep the missions safe from the ground and make it possible, because they had no actual female astronauts yet. Well, American ones, anyway.
I went to an aviation museum day for young girls who were interested in aerospace, and I met Claire Luce. And she said, I want to be an aerospace engineer. And she asked if she could come visit. And I was like, yes, of course. Well, that one day turned into me mentoring her, and that 13-year-old girl became a 16-year-old who had an internship at NASA, who then decided to become an aerospace engineer. And today, Claire is working on the very same rocket engine I'm gonna fly on.
They finally mention that one of the engineers on the flight is a woman who interned at NASA, so at least I have that info.
What was it like when you put the flight suit on?
Gosh. Okay, the flight suit, first of all, we look good.
Real quick, as Katy Perry waves into the distance like a small child, I just want to point out that they made a big deal about tailoring these custom-made sexy spacesuits, which feels like sexism, to be like, women can't go to space without being appealing to the male gaze. Progress. Lauren Sanchez tried to explain their reasoning for doing this, but it doesn't really help. Quote, let's reimagine the flight suit. Sanchez said was her initial belief in an interview with the New York Times. She said that the completed outfits produced by creative character engineering, quote, are elegant, but they also bring a little spice to space. It's the fact that they've been designed with the female body in mind that makes them stand out, she thinks. Usually, you know, these suits are made for a man, she says, then they get tailored to fit a woman. This is so stupid. I don't have anything else to say to that. This is just dumb. Bezos drives them to the launch pad, and I just want to say that I would never make fun of someone's looks. It's his narcissism that makes him so ugly. I'm afraid to say that with my Amazon Alexa sitting back there, but I unplugged her. She can't say shit. We get a picture, we get a glimpse at some of the engineers navigating the flight, but we don't get any of their names.
There is, of course, criticism, right? Like, why should we care about this? Why should we care about your average person, even though these women are not average? Why should we care about them or celebrities going to space? Or why should we even be going to space, period? And my answer to that is, well, why do we travel? Why go to Paris? Why go to London? Why go to Japan? It's because it does something to you that's different than just looking at a photograph.
Okay, let's hold space for that answer. If I go to Japan, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm breaking any barriers. That's why people are annoyed. You aren't helping women.
At about 2 o'clock this morning Central Time, we rolled the vehicle out. There you see on the truck with the capsule already what we call mated to the rocket.
Okay, I'm sorry. Wheeling the dick rocket slowly into that hangar looks terribly wrong. They ring the traditional bell for good luck. Gail looks like she thinks the good Lord has forsaken her. Why is Jeff still there? Why is he in a suit like he's going? Have they told him he's not going? We see them get into the rocket. A final check is done before they take off to make sure everyone is safe. And look, I genuinely want to say, all sincerity, that I'm grateful that all of these women came back from this safe, because it's easy to overlook as billionaires try to trivialize space travel and privatize it and capitalize off of it, that astronauts have lost their lives trying to travel to space. I want to take a minute now and go over 2 famous space shuttle disasters that took the lives of their entire crews, and I know this subject can be triggering, so I want to give that warning here. Skip to this time code if that's something you can't handle right now. This is a tragic subject, but I think it's important to remember those who gave their lives trying to do this very important job in times like these where we're trying to gamify and commodify space travel.
Headline news, I'm Chuck Roberts. NASA's triumphant launch today ends in shock, horror, and dismay.
It was 11:40 in the morning on January 28th, 1986, at the Kennedy Space Center in Merritt Island, Florida. 7 men and women excitedly boarded NASA's famous Challenger shuttle on a mission where, among other things, they were tasked with the documentation and photography of Halley's Comet. This launch was headline news, and around the world, people excitedly geared up for the launch, right along with the crew, who had consisted of Air Force pilot Francis R. Scobie, who was serving as the spacecraft commander, U.S. Navy Commander Michael J. Smith, who was piloting the ship, astronaut Judith Resnick, who had previously become the first Jewish woman in space and who was serving as a mission specialist, Ronald McNair, a husband and father who graduated from MIT specializing in quantum mechanics and laser technology, was serving as second mission specialist. He was also a decorated black belt in karate, and he won over 30 trophies, in addition to being a musician. And there's this picture of him playing his saxophone on the space shuttle during a previous mission. He just seemed like such a chill guy. Then the third mission specialist was Ellison Onizuka. He had multiple degrees in engineering and served in the Air Force on active duty as a test pilot until 1978. He married his high school sweetheart and had 2 daughters before eventually being accepted into the NASA space program and becoming the first Asian American in space. The last 2 members of the crew weren't government employees like the rest of them. Gregory Jarvis was a payload specialist that had been sent on the mission by his company, the Hughes Aircraft Corporation. He was supposed to be collecting data on the design of liquid-fueled rockets. The final member of the crew was also working as a payload specialist. Her name was Sharon Krista McAuliffe, and she was to be the first teacher to fly in space. She had been chosen over 11,000 other candidates at the behest of Ronald Reagan's Teacher in Space project, which aimed to find an exceptional teacher who could educate her students from space, which I didn't even know they had the technology to do this in 1986. I think that's so cool.
One of the things that I hope to bring back into the classroom is to make that connection with the students that they too are part of history, that the space program belongs to them, and to try to bring them up with the space age.
The hope was that it would generate interest in NASA's work, especially amongst young people. Krista was so excited and everyone seemed to love her. The media was obsessed with her, and through it all she was just so humble, stating, quote, "I cannot join the space program and restart my life as an astronaut. But this opportunity to connect my abilities as an educator with my interests in history and space is a unique opportunity to fulfill my early fantasies. I will never give up." Now, not only were friends and family of the astronauts gathered on the ground in Cape Canaveral, Florida that day, but like I said before, this was big news, and around the world, people watched from their homes. Children watched from their classrooms, including and especially Krista's class, who was so proud of her. everyone was excited. Spectators on the ground noted that it was a bit colder than what was expected. It was January, but it was Florida, so it being like 30 degrees overnight, even in Florida, is kind of unexpected. But otherwise, everything seemed normal. Until 73 seconds into the mission, where the famous Challenger space shuttle would break apart while attempting to leave the atmosphere and crash into the water, killing all 7 astronauts on board.
Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
Roger, go at throttle up. 1 minute, 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
Watching the footage of the controllers realizing what happens in real time is horrible, but what's worse is the live broadcast of the astronauts' friends and family watching from the launch pad and not even understanding at first what's happened.
Controllers here looking very carefully at the situation. Obviously a major malfunction.
It makes me cry just to see it. I've seen it so many times and it's still like one of the worst things I've ever seen. While no one was criminally charged for this disaster, it did come out in the wake of the explosion that scientists had found reason for serious concern because, look, I'm not a rocket scientist, so I'm not going to say this right, but I'm going to try to be as far away from wrong as possible. There was this part of the shuttle called an O-ring, which basically provided a seal between sections of the solid rocket boosters. It was like this rubber part, like this big rubber ring. And scientists realized on previous takeoffs that when temperatures were colder, the rubber lost its elasticity and became weak, and they were worried that this could cause a leak and begged NASA to delay the mission launch. But NASA felt pressure from the public to make good on this highly publicized event and had already had to delay due to other factors such as poor weather, and higher-ups didn't want to go more over budget, so capitalism won out over valuing human life, as is the American way, and sure enough, there was a leak, and that caused the explosion, and everyone died.
Dr. Payne, have you talked to anyone with NASA during the day?
No, I heard about this right after it happened and immediately turned to my source of information, which is television news, of course. I must say, it's a terrible thing to have happen, but I was very proud of the way in which the American press was able to give the people an immediate look, and I think the coverage shows great professionalism in your organization, Dan.
Well, thank you. Far be it for us to interrupt a compliment, but I do want to concentrate on our coverage.
This story is a big part of why I'm uncomfortable with greedy corporations treating space travel as another way to make money, especially while living through an era where the Trump administration is laying off all kinds of scientists and oversight committees so that rich people like Jeff Bezos don't even have to pretend to care about the safety of their consumers. Also, by the way, a lot of you may know by now that Big Bird was supposed to go up in the Challenger to help get kids interested in space. And they didn't do it because he didn't fit on the rocket. He was too big of a bird. But Carol Spinney, Big Bird's handler, would have also had to go up with him, which I didn't understand at first, so just letting that sink in. Thank God we at least don't live on the timeline where we lost Big Bird and Carol Spinney with the other victims. That would be terrible.
All right, got a little problem on the Space Shuttle Columbia. It has been out of communication now for the past 12 minutes. Let's take a look at a live picture of Mission Control in Houston.
17 years almost to the day after the tragedy of the Challenger explosion, another tragedy shook the scientific community. At 10:39 a.m., January 16th, 2003, Space Shuttle Columbia took off on a research mission. As they were leaving the Earth's atmosphere, a piece of debris broke off the shuttle and damaged its left wing. But the 7 astronauts on board were still able to make it to orbit and proceeded to work around the clock for the next 15 days on their assigned research and tasks. On February 1st, the shuttle began descending back to Earth on trajectory to land back in Cape Canaveral, Florida, where it had originated its flight. But tragically, it would never make it.
Screen left, screen right, you see tape of the final minutes of the Space Shuttle Columbia on its 28th flight
While still above Houston, Texas, the damage done to the spacecraft while leaving the Earth caught up with it, and due to its weakness, the shuttle broke apart upon re-entry into our atmosphere. Mission Control lost contact with the shuttle before realizing what had happened. There were no survivors. I was trying to put together a tribute to the 7 astronauts lost that day as I researched this awful thing that happened in history. And I realized that no one would probably be able to sum it up better than Janet Kavandi, a fellow astronaut who recounted learning of the news while being interviewed for the 20th anniversary of the disaster. Quote, 20 years ago today, I was in Austin, Texas, preparing to celebrate my son's 12th birthday with our extended family. Just after 8 a.m., I received a phone call from my sister who said that Mission Control had lost contact with the space shuttle, Columbia. I was in the process of responding that it wasn't uncommon to experience communications outages when she flatly stated, Janet, debris is falling over Texas. Within seconds, I was standing in front of my television, watching pieces of the disintegrating vehicle streak across the deep blue sky, and as tears ran down my face, the shock and pain was indescribable. The smiling NASA portraits of the crew members on the screen were not strangers, but the faces of my closest friends. The commander, Colonel Rick Husband, father of 2, was an Air Force pilot, a true Texan with a Texas-sized heart and a beautiful baritone voice. Commander Willie McCool, a naval aviator, was the shuttle pilot and a father of 3. He was a kind and gentle soul who had previously cared for my family when I flew on my 2nd mission. Dr. Kaplanda Chawla, the first female astronaut of Indian descent, held a doctorate in aerospace engineering. She was an avid aviator who flew her own aerobatic airplane, and another gentle soul who often babysat my kids when I was called to late simulator training. Dr. David Brown, another naval aviator with the rank of captain and a medical doctor, had also performed trapeze in a circus earlier in his lifetime. Dr. Laurel Clark was a Navy flight surgeon, also with the rank of captain, who I would often see dropping off her son at the Montessori school that my kids also attended. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Anderson, an Air Force transport pilot, was the ultimate perfectionist and the father of 2 girls. And finally, Colonel Ian Raymond, an Israeli Air Force pilot and first Israeli to fly on the shuttle, was the father of 4. I know that that whole section was hard to watch. It was hard for me to research and record, but it was important to me that we talk about and remember the people who gave their lives trying to make this world a better place than it had been when they found it. Because there's a lot of jokes to be made about the situation, but putting that aside for just a moment, I want to remember myself to have reverence and respect for such a miraculously yet incredibly dangerous thing like space travel. I am genuinely grateful that no disasters have happened on Blue Origin's watch. I am not saying there will be, to be clear, for legal reasons. I'm just, honestly, I get so nervous when we start trivializing stuff like this because I don't want to have to see it go wrong for anybody. So with that said, we're gonna take a breath and go back to clowning the uber rich. Wouldn't that be nice?
You know, Ariane, I have to say,
I might break in. We got
experience.
Jeff Bezos here.
Yep.
I'm so excited for you. I don't want to get off. I want to go with you. And when you get back, I can't wait to hear how it's changed you. I love all of you. See you soon. Godspeed.
Jeff Bezos keeps trying to make this about himself. It is so embarrassing. And then they interview Kris Kardashian and one of her daughters. I can't remember which one because they honestly all look identical to me.
For all of the female astronauts that are going to go up today, it's such a big day in history and it's so empowering.
It's really something. It's just Kim keeps writing us because she was supposed to be here with us and she's studying for law school, so she had a big test that she had to take.
Then she says Kim couldn't be there because she's burning the midnight oil in law school.
And all of them said, I think you should do it. All of them, much to my surprise, including Oprah. I really thought she was going to say, nope, I don't think you should do it.
And she was like, do it.
She said, I really think you should do it because you've been talking about it. And when it comes back and you're not on it, you're going to be kicking yourself saying, I could have gone and I didn't. And I don't want to have to hear about it for the next few years.
This sounds like Oprah was so tired of hearing Gail talk about this flight.
LL Cool J said this to me once, dreams don't have deadlines. Isn't that good?
That is real good.
What a random name drop right there.
We go through each of the important subsystems, and our flight director, shout out to Michelle Christensen, our flight director, our first female flight director at Blue Origin.
Okay, the flight director's name is Michelle Christensen. I'm really trying to shout out the people who actually worked.
Again, it's not normal. Human spaceflight will never be normal or routine, but this is the beginning of making this kind of travel. We got 4 moms on board, a grandmother, making these types of people going into space very routine.
Getting back a little bit into the flight profile and what
Sure.
they're going to feel as part of this now routine flight.
This feels like the daughter of a real astronaut trying to give a minor reality check to the situation, only to be bulldozed aside by the Blue Origin propagandists.
Thank you so much. You're next, you know.
This one interviewer tells Oprah that she should go up in the shuttle next, and she laughs, which is funny to me.
There is a chance that we will get to hear the audio inside and hear what these soon-to-be astronauts are saying and possibly singing while they're weightless. So
I can't wait for that moment. I'm also hoping she comes down to Earth and does like either a Fireworks Part 2 or E.T. Part 2.
Everyone is drooling over whether or not Katy Perry will sing in space.
One of the incredible parts about this crew is their ability to tell the story coming out of this in their own unique way. The way Gail can go on TV and talk about it. Amanda can go and continue to advocate for women more broadly about it. The way Katy can sing about it, etc.
The way Katy can sing about it. Is she gonna write another fake feminist album with Dr. Luke about going to space?
And that is what's so special about this new era of spaceflight. This is not NASA. This is not governments. It's not the US, China, or Russia. This is the commercial era. These are private companies, and this is Blue Origin sending the first all-female crew into space.
Also, I don't like how we're hyping privatized space travel like it's better than socialized scientific research.
Good luck and Godspeed, ladies.
Mach 1, vehicle is supersonic.
Supersonic motivating rhymes are creating. It's gonna be in my head for forever now. You're welcome. Okay, so they go up. Their friends and family are there. Orlando Bloom is there, but I had to hunt for him like a very difficult Where's Waldo puzzle. I don't think he wanted to be on camera at all.
Oh my God, gosh. Wow.
When they come back down, there's a lot of screaming.
All right, shortly here, we're waiting to see the drogue parachutes deploy from the crew capsule. Those are like the guide parachutes. There go the drogue parachutes.
Just free falling right there until those drogues came out.
Not gonna lie, that would be me. Anyone who's ever ridden on a roller coaster with me knows how true that is. That would totally be me. And then, when they land, one of them tries to get out of the pod, and they open the door from the inside, but then someone runs over and closes it because I guess they don't want you to know that that is possible to do. And so they make them wait.
Here goes Jeff Bezos to open the hatch.
Come on, Jeffrey, you can do it. Pave the way, put your back into it.
And they come around with this tool, and then he also has like this big stick thing, and then they make it look like he has to ratchet them out like a firefighter saving cats from a burning building. What a great day for women, you guys. Thank God Jeff Bezos was here. They come out and Katy and Gail both kiss the ground.
I
just have to have a moment with the ground. Let me just appreciate the ground for just a second.
And then there's pandemonium. The broadcasters don't know that the cameras are even on.
I have no, it's not working. So someone just tell me when we're on.
I will say this, I'm not a Lauren Sanchez fan. You know, she's Jeff Bezos' fiance. I do think she's cooler than him. She flies helicopters. But I'm not saying she's like my favorite person or anything. But I will say the sweetest reaction, the one that feels the most real to me, if we're looking for the human moments in this, is when Lauren gets out of the pod, Jeff is right there, and the first thing she does is ask for her kids.
Where are my babies?
They're over here. Go see them.
That's a very sweet moment as a mother, and it feels more honest than Katy Perry holding up a daisy.
Because, you know what I was saying, it was like quiet, but then also really alive. And you look at it and you're like, we're all in this together. Like, that's all I could think about is like, we're so connected, more connected than you realize, because you just see right here, you see like, you know, states and all these things that like divide us, but we're not.
And we're back. Girl is part of the ultra elite, talking about how we're all in this together like Troy Bolton.
You know, I usually have nice words to say, but in this moment, I just want all survivors to know that you can heal. No dream is too wild, and that if it's so wild out there, like going to space, you can absolutely make it through, and it can absolutely be possible.
I do genuinely feel happy for Amanda and Aisha, though. I'm not gonna try and take this away from them. Again, just to keep saying it, my criticism is not aimed at them.
Gayle King, you are officially an astronaut. How do you feel?
I still can't accept that word, but I will say I can't even believe what I saw. When somebody calls this a ride, this was not a ride. What happened to us was not a ride. This was a bona fide friggin' flight.
Gayle keeps rejecting the word astronaut, but then is the one that's mad that people are calling this a ride. We'll circle back to that in a second.
But the best part was when we got back in our seats after 0 G's, Katy sang, "What a Wonderful World."
She did? Katy sang. You can actually hear it on the comms.
You are officially an astronaut.
Thank you so much.
How do you feel?
I feel super connected to love.
Katy saying this has been memed to all hell. It's one of those things where sometimes as a white woman, I see other white women having a very white moment and I think, guys, be cool, you're making us all look bad.
Because I just asked for a sign from the heavens, from my angels, and they're like, well, here's the feather, which is what your mother calls you, and if that's not enough, the capsule's named Tortoise, which is your second nickname that your mother calls you. And I'm like, okay, I'm going.
She also says that she agreed to this after 2 signs from her angels, which, man, her angels did her dirty. If my angels set me up like this, I think I'd be a straight up atheist afterwards.
1, 2, 3, take us space!
The footage from the pod while in 0 G's shows the women yelling, "Take up space," which I cannot tell you how annoyed I am by that moment. I hate it. It's just so pandering. You know, I never knew what it meant when Katy Perry said, "Do you ever feel like a plastic bag drifting through the wind?" But now I get it. We've come full circle.
I will have to tell you, look at the moon. Look, oh my god! Oh my god!
Katy also yelling, "Oh my goddess," because of course she is. And also, she holds a daisy to the camera, which she did for her daughter, whose name is Daisy. But all sentiment goes out the Blue Origin window when she then holds up the set list to her world tour. Classy, you're in space. Do you think this will hurt Blue Origin because celebs will now not want anything to do with it because they don't want to get this level of hate that they've seen online?
And I just saw a video of us walking up the, I don't want to call it plank, but what's the proper thing, Lauren?
That's right.
You can call it anything you want. You're an astronaut.
No, I think an astronaut would know what to call it.
And I got a text from a friend who's from Germany, so you have to appreciate the sense of humor. He says, once you get there, you're going to feel like it's sex with the gods. Well, that's never had sex with a god to my knowledge, so thank you for the visual.
Huh, what a word picture. Amanda tells this moving story about putting her dreams on hold and talks about the experiments she did, and it's the most moving part of this whole thing. And then the interviewer ruins the moment by having a please clap moment about it.
I got there, you can get there too.
Beautiful. Aisha, no representation. Yes, please clap to that.
No hate to this reporter, obviously. Don't send hate to anyone on here. Remember, we gracefully side-eye and then go about our business in this corner of the internet. But she keeps reiterating how this was her first launch, and it made me giggle because she says it so many times.
You guys have been so kind to me as this is my first launch. Walk us through, myself included, since this is my first launch. As I have admitted here, this is my first launch. Again, full admission, this is my first launch. As I've told you, this is my first launch.
For those of you who have perhaps never watched a space flight before. Carissa.
Now, before I get into the public fallout and like the internet's reaction and stuff, I want to highlight Karen Nyberg, a retired astronaut who made this video years ago teaching us how to wash our hair in space.
Let's see, to get started, these are the things I need. A bag of warm water, a little no-rinse shampoo, towel, and my comb. Squirting it onto my scalp. And I have a mirror here so I can kind of watch what I'm doing. Sometimes the water gets away from you, and you try and catch as much as you can.
Now, obviously, this woman has a PhD. She's done amazing work for the scientific community. I am not saying that this is the highlight of her career. I'm just saying that it fascinated me because I've never seen this happen before.
And I take my no-rinse shampoo and squirt it also on the scalp, just a little bit, and rub it in. And sometimes I'll actually take my comb to help work it all the way to the ends. And I like to take my towel while I have the shampoo in there and just kind of work it. Because without standing under running water, you kind of need to use the towel a little bit to help get some of the dirt out. I think that's pretty good. And now as my hair dries, as the water evaporates from my hair, it will become humidity in the air, and then our air conditioning system will collect that into condensate, and it won't be long, and our water processing system will turn that into drinking water.
This woman is having a better hair day in space than I have ever had on Earth, and she's generating drinking water at the same time? Slay. Now, before we go further, I just want to say that a bunch of conspiracy theorists had to make this whole situation weirder than it already was by trying to say it was fake. Why? Why would the purpose of that be?
Some people are calling it fake, accusing Blue Origin of staging the launch in a Hollywood studio, and even claiming the mission was part of a secret ritual. Yes, really.
This feels like flat earther shit. Like they went to space, and that's crazy. Just take this moment for what it is. The right can't meme because they can't just appreciate a good meme when it's given to them. Candace Owens crashed out after this, which like...
But here's my bone to pick with Matt Walsh. We have a long-running beef on the topic of NASA and moon landings because he thinks they happened. And listen, when the guys did it, it was fake and gay. I'm sorry, Matt, and it's time for you to admit it. It was just as bad. You just weren't alive for it, okay? Homies were on the moon making phone calls before the time of cell phones. Like, hey, what's up, Prez? It's me on the moon with the flag. No issues. First time we've ever flown this thing. Yeah, I don't know. We just got through the belt pretty easily. And until Matt Walsh accepts that the mission in '69 was also fake and gay, I don't care. I can't defend you. Even if I fully agree with you about Gayle King, I literally cannot defend you. Okay, you must come to terms with the fact that NASA and space missions have always been this fake and gay. You just weren't alive for the original ones, and you need to learn the history of NASA, of the Apollo programs, which were occult and satanic. It was literally meant to be an antichrist movement to make people believe in man. It's a fact.
Space travel is fake and gay. I didn't see that coming at all. Thought I saw everything at this point. NASA is satanic, and apparently that is something she argues about with Matt Walsh. The Republican v. Republican fighting, one of my favorite things to witness. This is why I'm pleading with us over here on the left, and I think the majority of actual leftists understand this, but I'm begging liberals to be more nuanced, because when we throw out all nuance, then we create a space for Looney Tunes like Candace Owens to lure young people in with what feels like the nuance they so desperately need to hear. And the next thing you know, we're entertaining this craziness. There were, however, some fun memes posted. One was a picture of Katy Perry kissing the ground, and it said, "I kissed the ground and I liked it." Another was Wendy's, yes, that Wendy's, tweeting, "Ugh, send them back." Which some people tried to make into a sexism thing, but it was funny in my opinion. And then Martha Stewart posted an old video of her experiencing zero gravity with the lyrics to Firework. And y'all, if Martha Stewart has to come out here and tell you guys that you're being too pretentious, it's time to pack it in. Reports are saying that Katy Perry is embarrassed by the spectacle, which you were pretty embarrassing, or whatever it was that Selena said. And Gayle got in more trouble when she tried to be morally superior about it on the news.
Because I've certainly read some of the things online, coming from people that I know, that I like, that I consider friends. Have you been? Please don't call it a ride. That is not a friggin' ride. Whenever a man goes up, you have never said to an astronaut, boy, what a ride.
I think this clip speaks to why people are so mad about this, because even I got to the point in the middle of all this where I was writing this and researching where I had to ask myself why I felt the need to do all of this work. Write this whole essay about why I feel the way I do about this, and speaking for myself, it's twofold. Firstly, it's the performative activism of it all. The mainstream media spectacle of touting this great achievement for women and the grandstanding that comes with trying to position yourself as a hero for doing something frivolous. I don't care about frivolity in the right time, in the right place. You know, I'm never gonna make somebody feel bad about going to Disney World, going overseas, buying an expensive thing that they don't need. I'm not gonna tell people what to do with their money. But one, it's different when you're hoarding massive amounts of money and you're a billionaire. But when you do something just for your own enjoyment, just own it. William Shatner at least acknowledged that this was just a ride when he went up. Don't do it and then tell me I can't be annoyed by it without being a self-hating woman. There are so many women doing important work, and the famous passengers on this flight have platforms already. If Katy Perry wants to talk about protecting the Earth, she can post about it to her millions of followers. She can drive attention to that the next time she wins an award. I know the last album was rocky, but hypothetically, I will never be a person that faults celebrities when they try to use their work and their achievements to generate awareness for things that are objectively more important than what they've done themselves. You're never gonna hear me complaining that some Oscar speech got too political or like talked about something that was a cause close to the person's heart. It's honestly what I hope to do with my work someday, but you don't need to get in a spaceship to do it. You have a thing that so many people would kill for. You have attention, and you don't need more. And leading into the second part of this is the absolute out-of-touch nature of doing the crazy rich person thing while so many people are living through Great Depression II, Electric Boogaloo. The rich person flapper culture that was popular in the 1920s died out real fast when people could barely pay their bills in the 1930s. You know, flexing culture was something you guys could get away with when the economy was good. You're lucky enough to not be struggling. You don't need to rub it in. I've seen people say Gayle King saying, "Have y'all been to space?" is the new "let them eat cake." And here's the thing. Marie Antoinette never even said "let them eat cake." It's a common misconception, like the one about her being a teenager when she was killed, which I used to believe because that's what I had heard. And even though I'm a history nerd, I wasn't hyperfixated on the French Revolution until very recently. I wonder why. Anyway, I stated once in an old video like 2 years ago that Marie Antoinette was younger than she actually was when she died, and I got roasted in the comment section for it. So this is me correcting that mistake. But yeah, Gayle really did say that. Let's make this the new "let them eat cake" because she got caught in 4K. She didn't even get caught. She volunteered this.
Have you been?
I'm just tired of people looking at social issues as a way to get a leg up on the rest of the world instead of a problem that needs fixing. This video wouldn't be complete without talking about Sunny Williams, a military veteran and career astronaut that has logged more spacewalk time than any other woman in history, who, I'm sure you heard, recently returned to Earth after what was planned as an 8-day mission with fellow astronaut Butch Wilmore, which, by the way, Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore, the most astronaut names ever. Super cool names. Anyway, that 8-day mission became a 286-day ordeal. The pair couldn't return when their shuttle was discovered to have technical issues that I, as a normie, don't understand, but I know that it was deemed unsafe. They filled their time in space for 9 months before SpaceX, aka Elon Musk, tried to take credit for getting them down. I wish we talked about Sunny more because this woman has assumed command of the International Space Station twice. She's ran a marathon in space, which I didn't even know you could do, logged 608 days in space across 3 missions, and even though she was only able to get back to safety on Earth barely a month ago, she's not what currently comes up when you Google women in space. And that's why I can't just roll my eyes and walk away from this without saying something. I hope to never talk about this again after I'm done talking about it here, but you know, Sunny probably doesn't even mind as much as I do. This doesn't even bother her probably the same way that it bothers me because she's so humble. After everything she's experienced, even when the internet said she looked old when she literally returned from being stranded in space, which is, in my opinion, an actual example of misogyny directed at female astronauts.
Please don't call it a ride.
And by the way, I haven't heard anybody try to take the title of astronaut away from an actual astronaut that did the actual work. Like, sexism exists, so I understand where people are coming from by being like, oh, people are only mad because it's women, but it's really just because they didn't really do much while they were up there, you know? Like, I never heard anybody say Sally Ride wasn't a real astronaut. Sunny was quoted as saying, quote, "I don't feel like a hero, just another person involved in the space business. I'm hoping to encourage young folks to become explorers. It's women like her that make me feel inspired, as a woman, to keep working and learning and exploring. This is what makes me feel super connected to love." Oh my god, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing. This whole situation just blew my mind, and I just had to talk about it. I fell down this like abyss of information about space, something that I've never really looked that far into because honestly it terrified me, and I've really gained an appreciation and not necessarily an understanding, because I don't think I could ever understand an astronaut's work, a rocket scientist's work, but I've gained this respect for why they do what they do. And honestly, just hearing people talk about the things that they're passionate about always makes me feel like their passion is becoming contagious. So, you know, I've kind of come away with a fondness for the topic. And maybe some people will say it's not that deep. And then on the other side of things, maybe people might try to say that I'm being too easy on some of them, but I really do want to be fair and balanced about this. I hate Jeff Bezos. Don't come for me, Amazon. Oh my god. I just feel like there's so many more important things in the world, and I just don't have the emotional energy to... Hi, Perry. Come here. Come here, Perry. I just don't have the emotional energy to pretend like Katy Perry is experiencing misogyny by people calling her out for this. You know, I wish I had a more concise way to end the video. What about you, Perry? Do you have anything to say? Well said. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing. Everything you do to support this channel means so much to me. We're almost at 13,000 subscribers. We might be there by the time this video goes live, which is crazy. Isn't that crazy, Perry? Because just a month ago, we hit 12,000 subscribers. I don't think this channel has ever hit 1,000, like gained 1,000 subscribers in a month. Like, for the channel size that I have, that is an insane amount of growth, and I just want to say thank you so much. I never expected 13,000 people to care about what I had to say. Perry doesn't even care about what I have to say anymore. It's fine. I love you too. If you're new here and you're a fan of nonsense, maybe consider sticking around if you haven't already. I post nonsense all the time. And remember, my name is Avery. I'm a YouTuber if you say so, because thanks to you guys, this is technically a YouTube channel. You remember when Tim Curry said space was the only place that hadn't been corrupted by capitalism? Boy, I sure wish he was still right about that.
I'm escaping to the one place that hasn't been corrupted by capitalism. Space!